I've been asked today to talk to you about businesses versus companies and give you some insight into that. But let me start by asking you the question, what is the difference between a business and a company? If you want a good, strong definition between the difference between a business and a business is an organization that is run to trade in return for revenue. Okay? So a business, effectively, is run to generate revenue, to generate money, to generate value. The definition of a company is a collection of people. It's a collection of companions. You might, in military terms, a company is a company of soldiers. Okay? The two are very different. And yet they're often just mixed up and interchanged. A lot of times when we look at them and we talk about businesses and companies in the same breath as if they're the same thing. Actually, this is one of the most important lessons that I've had to learn painfully over the last 20 years, is that there's always different perspectives on the same thing. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if we are watching a football match and everybody sees a goal go in, there's going to be 20,000 people who thought it wasn't a goal and 20,000 people who thought it was a goal and 50,000 different opinions about how good a goal it was. There's a different perspective everywhere. At the moment in this room, there's only one of me stood up here talking to you, and yet every single one of you have made different impressions about what you think I'm like. Okay? Every one of you has a different view of me. There might be some commonality of some of those views, but they're all different. In reality, we look at the world through our eyes and through our own perceptions, and we make decisions and ideas about them. And one of the things that you learn as you go through life, it's vital that you understand which are the most appropriate perceptions, which are the most appropriate lenses of which to view things. And often, when we think of companies, we think of businesses. When actually what we should be doing is thinking about companies. And that's one of the things I want you to focus on today. So, a business, for want of a better definition, is basically an organization that is active in generating revenue, and a company is a collection of people. But let's unpick that a little bit more. A business, actually, if it's a publicly owned business, which is a bit of an ironic term, but we can get into that another time, a business that is publicly owned has a legal requirement to maximize profit for its members, members being the shareholders. The other side of businesses is businesses will often talk about making sure that we maximize ownership within the organization to make it effective. Now, what that's talking about is saying that for every decision and every activity that has to be done, we need to make sure you feel like you own that. And there's an importance there. What people are beginning to realize is that's the wrong way round. Okay? When you look at it through a different lens, the lens of a company, we talk about stewardship. And in stewardship, we don't talk about how we all own everything, we talk about how we can contribute to it. Okay? What can we put in rather than what can we get out? Now, probably a better analogy for that is like a gardener. Okay? You can think of a gardener in two ways. You can think of a gardener as somebody who benefits from being able to take all the tomatoes off the trees. That's one way of looking at a gardener. That's the business way of looking at a gardener. Okay? A company way of looking at a gardener is someone who looks after the trees, looks after the plants, looks after the garden. Right? Both have the same outcome, that the gardener benefits by being fed, getting food, getting joy out of seeing these beautiful plants. But one is focused on what the gardener puts in, one is focused on what the gardener takes out. Can you see the difference? One of the best ways to think the difference between business and company, business is about what you're all going to get out of it, and company is about what you put in. That's the difference. Now, what I'm going to encourage you today is that I have very little interest in businesses and a huge amount of interest in company. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's a Confucius quote. I tell my staff that they are the best paid staff in the industry all the time. And it normally gets a bit of a laugh off them. But the reason I tell them this is for basically because of this quote. This is, Confucius says, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. This is the kind of stuff that when you hear in your early 20s before your career starts, you kind of give lip service to and think it's just a bit of a hippie crap or something else, right? When you've been doing it long enough, you start to realize this is the only stuff that actually matters. Find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. My staff are the best paid staff in the world because I pay them a lot of money for the 5 minutes a week that they're doing something they wouldn't do for free. Right? That's how you find the job and the career that you're going to love. What a company does is pay you what your value to that company is, i.e., how much money can it make by employing you? Because if it can't, if it pays you more than that, it won't last very long because it has to find that money to pay you. Okay? So a company pays you what your value is to that business. Your value to that business is entirely separate and different to your value as a human being. It's about what you put into that business. It's about what you put into that company. So if you want something out of a company, you have to invest into it first. You have to be willing to put in. Now, if you find yourself thinking that you're underpaid in a company, that's because you're doing stuff that you don't love. That's because you're doing things that you don't enjoy. If you go on YouTube and Google, or just Google and you'll find it on YouTube, what motivates people? Probably one of the first answers you'll see is from the Royal Society of the Arts. And they did some research to go and find out what it was that motivates people in work. And the motivation behind why they did that research was because for years, companies and businesses have been saying, what we need to do is look at performance-related pay. Performance-related pay is the way we can maximize productivity in an organization. How many of you have heard of performance-related pay? Excellent. All right? Performance-related pay is the concept that the more we pay you, the more motivated you'll be and the better the productivity, the better the work you'll do. And so rather than just paying you a flat salary, this is very, very common in sales, by the way. So sales jobs, you'll see this a lot. Right? We'll pay you a base salary, but then we'll give you bonuses based on certain achievable targets. And by doing that, we're going to motivate you to do better in sales. Now, who here thinks that's a great idea? Okay? Yeah. Sounds very logical and a very good idea. What they found was the exact opposite. What they found when they did this research in the States was that the more they paid people for all but the most menial of labor or the least creative. So they eventually tied it down to the idea that if you had to engage your brain, performance-related pay didn't work and in some cases was counterproductive, i.e. the productivity went down. Okay? There was some other caveats in there as well, which I'll throw in. One of them was the base amount of money you had to make had to be enough that money was not in of itself an issue. And what we mean by that is that if you were living on the breadline, being paid less than a living wage, then performance-related pay did work. Why? Because you were desperate for that money. Right? But beyond a very low amount, less than you would probably think, if you were paid enough that you could afford to pay your mortgage, afford to put food on the table, and occasionally go out and see a movie, okay, if you're paid enough to do that, money stopped being the motivator. And at that point, paying people more did not increase their productivity and did not increase their motivation. Okay? So they went and took it to India, and they did the same research, and they found the same result. And then they went and took it to Africa, did the same research, found the same result. And you can go and watch the video, and you can look up all this, and you can see the research, see how they did it. And the reality was the science did not back the conclusion that performance-related pay works. The science backed the conclusion that performance-related pay did not work and actually could be counterproductive for anything but the most menial of work. Now, why? So they had to ask the question then is what does motivate people? So if it's not the pay, what is it that motivates people? Now, it's hard if you've never really held a job before for you to believe what I've just said to you. Because if you've not had money coming in before, if you've not been looking at it, you probably think that is what motivates you. And actually, this is one of the biggest issues that is facing the crisis that's occurring at the moment. This year, a report was published that said that we have a soft skills crisis. This is a government report, soft skills crisis, that students and graduates entering the workforce are not ready for work, and that employees are finding it incredibly difficult to hire and employ graduates and students into the workforce. Okay. That's a fact. That was thinking about that. Now, sitting on Employer of the Futures, I can tell you the employers are saying exactly the same thing. That they're finding that young people are not work ready, as they put it. And the reason they give is not a lack of qualifications, not a lack of skill, but a lack of soft skills. And what do they define as soft skills? That's work ethic, ability to interact in a team. But number one on the top of the list was an ability to take constructive criticism. that they found that people that they were recruiting now were finding it very difficult to take constructive criticism. Okay? And as someone who spends a lot of time working with young people and working with getting them into the industry, that's exactly what we're finding as well, an inability to take constructive criticism. And at the root of that is an inability to fail. Currently, in the UK workforce across all industries, 47%, let me get the exact figure for you, so you know I don't just make this up, 46%, I was on, are currently passively looking for work. So employees, almost half of them, are looking for another job whilst they're in work at the moment. Now, that might not be a huge, shocky thing to you, but it should be. Because what that means is that half the people in any company or place of work at the moment in the UK are not happy there and want to work somewhere else. In reality, it's even worse than that, because 17% are actively job hunting and 27% of all employees change job every year. Now, that does not make for a happy workplace in terms of if that's all you can stay in any particular workplace, that's not great. That's average. That's actually warped by the people that are slightly older that stay in jobs longer. In reality, for graduates, does anyone know what the average for a graduate is in their first job post-university? Sorry? That's pretty close, actually. It's 18. It's about 15 months. At best, it's 18 months. It depends where you are. And also the industry. Actually, I'll give you a ball. Stress ball. There you go. Okay. I want to throw this, but then I get health and safety people. But it is soft, so I don't think it can do much damage. So, oh, good catch. Did you see that? That was like, that was a good catch, that one. Right. It's about 18 months. Now, when you hear something like, oh, 18 months, a job, that doesn't sound bad. Think about that from the other side, from the company's perspective. That means they lose 2/3 of all their staff every year. 2/3. Can you imagine losing 2/3 of your staff every year? Okay. Now, what's the best way to prevent that? Don't hire graduates. If you don't hire graduates, you won't lose 2/3 of your staff every year. I'm just telling you the logic that a lot of businesses go through. I don't, but a lot of businesses go through that. Because if you look at the average and the statistics, if you hire a graduate, you're going to have to change your... If all you do is hire graduates, you're going to lose 2/3 of them every year. Now, as it is, we still have to recruit continuously, but we tend to lose someone about once every 2 months or so. Right? Which for a company of 60 to 70 staff is really good. But it sounds horrific. And if you imagine the impact of losing one of your friends every couple of months, right? That's what it is when you're doing well. If you're actually just beating average on a company of our size, you'd be looking at once a week having to recruit somebody. If all you did was recruit graduates, and we do a high number of graduates, we take on a lot of graduates, partly because we want to try and address these soft skills shortages and get them work ready. If you do that, then you're literally looking at replacing people almost on a daily basis, just because of the rate of which you last. And that's because you're lasting 18 months or 15 months in your job. But there's another point. In most companies, the cost of recruiting you is so high that very rarely do you make any money for that business within the first year you're there. Which means that if everyone leaves, on average after 18 months, you've got a very fine margin of actually being able to get productive members of staff that can make money for you, unless it's low-skilled work. This is the issue. These are one of the reasons we're having issues with getting graduates into jobs. Okay? And just to finally make the crisis very clear to everyone so that you don't think we're making all this up, computer science has for the last 7 years had the lowest employment rate of all degrees in the UK. The Higher Education Standards Authority agency produces a report once a year. This year it's around about 69% of people doing a computer science degree are employed 1 year post-university. That's an average. It's better at Salford. Mainly because of an industrial placement programme. That's one of the reasons it's better here. But across the whole of the country, that's where it is. That means over 30% are not employed 1 year after graduating in computer science. In law, it's only a few percentage points better, and I think the top of the league tables is maths. Remember, it's got one of the highest in the 90% percentile that they're working in a year. Okay? So, understanding how we make sure that we get people to stay in a place and enjoy that is key. And actually, that's not just the company's problem, it's your problem. How do you make sure you go to a place where you can actually dedicate some time to that, you can build a career, you can start and you love what you're doing? And that's about understanding what really is going to motivate you. And let me tell you, the headline is, money is not on the list. Money will not be a motivator for you. Okay? Just paying people more money does not keep them in the job longer. It doesn't motivate you. Once you get that money, you spend it. We know this. So if you go for really high, let me speak personally. So when I first graduated from university, it was right before the dot-com bubble. I was involved in writing Bluetooth in 1997, 98, 99. So I was one of the team of 6 that developed one of the first Bluetooth stacks and spun off Cambridge Silicon Radio soon after that. By the time I'd been in the industry for 3 years, I was earning £250,000 a year, which is significantly more than I earn now. Significantly more. I quit at £250,000 a year because, quite simply, my heart wasn't in it anymore. I didn't see any point in what I was doing. Okay? I felt like the industry was just a waste of time. I didn't enjoy it. I was disillusioned. I instead left, spent 2 years touring with African Children's Choir, and I ended up living in Uganda for several years, working with disadvantaged children, and working in Rwanda, working with victims of the genocide. This is about 2003. Working with victims of the genocide. It wasn't long after that working with orphans and working in an orphanage over there, okay? And I was earning less than £1,000 a year. So from 250,000 to living off just about £1,000 a year is what I was living off. Okay? And I can tell you that my life was far more fulfilled on the £1,000 a year than it was the £250,000 a year. So I'm not speaking as someone who's not been at both ends of it. So what motivates me is similar to what the researchers found. Any ideas of, if it's not money, what motivates people? Experience? Passion. Passion is definitely on the list. Experience is something you get doing something. It doesn't tend to... The act of wanting to get experience is a motivator, but not the experience itself. Passion is definitely an experience, but what is your passion? Here's the honest answer. If you want to know what motivates you, okay, what do you do when you go home? Those are the things that you invest your time in when nobody makes you. And if you want to know what employers look for, this is why your extracurricular stuff, things like these competitions, hackathons, these are the things that employers are looking for. We know that if you come to Salford University and you do your degree here, you're going to learn a lot of great stuff, as is everybody else sat in this room. And your grade will give some kind of, whether you get first or second, give us some amount of differentiation, but they're not that interested in that. What they'll look at is, did you do the course? What course did you do? What did you do that the course didn't make you do? Because that's the bit that says what you're interested in. Okay? The stuff that your lecturers made you do and the stuff the university made you do and your coursework has no value to employers in assessing whether or not what it is you really care about. Because that's the stuff you had to do to pass your course. It doesn't mean it's not important. It is. You have to pass the course and you have to do that work. But the stuff that you do that's not made, you're not made to do, that is the stuff that people are genuinely interested in knowing about you. Okay? So, it turns out there are 3 things, and this is what I want you to take home from today. Because you're going to have to memorize this. There's only 3 things to remember. The first one is purpose. If you give people a sense of purpose, that what they're doing makes a difference, they will do it for nothing if they honestly believe it makes a difference. Okay? Purpose is the #1 driver in people's lives. Without purpose, it doesn't matter how much money you're paid. As I was saying in my own example, I didn't see the point in what I was doing. A sense of purpose, without that, money will make no difference at all. Your job will be unfulfilling and you will hate getting out of bed. Because what happens is you get to the end of 3, 4, 5 years of doing that job over and over and over again, and you realize that you've achieved nothing in those 5 years and you're not getting them back. Sense of purpose is something that you absolutely need to find and make sure that you hold on to tightly and don't compromise on. Second one is this, mastery. It is the same reason that people continue to kick a football around on a Sunday afternoon and they have to pay £5 to go and play, and they're going to make it big. And even after the dream has gone away, they continue to do it. Why? Because people love to feel they're getting better at something. It's the same reason people play Candy Crush over and over again when there's no value in it. or Pokemon Go or any other game, or they pick up the guitar or they pick up the piano or they do anything else. Nobody pays them. They're never going to get rich doing it, but they do it over and over again. Why? Because mastery is a powerful driver in human emotion. Feeling like you've got better matters. Same reason you play Call of Duty, Battlefront, any of those. If you don't have mastery in your job, if you don't feel like you're improving, then you get to the end of 5 years and realize you're doing exactly the same thing you did 5 years ago, and you feel like you've wasted your life. That is why mastery is so important. Purpose and mastery, the two most important things in your life. If you don't have them, you will hate where you work. Finally, autonomy. And this is the hardest one to achieve, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. Autonomy is the freedom to make decisions. There is nothing where it's easy to see this one in the counter, what happens when you don't have it. There's nothing worse than being held accountable for something that you had no ability to impact on. This happens a lot in bad jobs, okay, where you're told off for something that you had no ability to affect that outcome. Autonomy is about making sure that you're the one that in control of the decisions that you make, and therefore when you're held accountable for those decisions, you feel like it was just, it was fair, and it made sense. But more than that, it also makes you understand and recognize that what you're doing, the contributions you're making, are actually effective. If all you're doing is regurgitating what somebody else is telling you to do, then you're back into that mindless task category. If you're actually contributing to the decisions that are being made, then you feel a part of something. Autonomy is a key motivator for people. You want to feel like you contributed and you had a part. If you get those three things in your work, you will never be underpaid, because every penny you get is a bonus, because you do it for free anyway. Okay? Those are that powerful as a driving force. So when I say to you at the start that if you feel underpaid, fundamentally, it's because you've not found these three things in your work. This is not a statement about the fact that you should all come and work for me for free. It's not what I'm saying. What it's saying is that if you find yourself being motivated by the money, it's because money is the only thing that's left to motivate you, and the three things that you should be looking for to motivate you are absent. It's a strong sign you're in the wrong place. So if it doesn't matter what you do, but it does matter why you're doing it, how do you find the job that you need? That's really the last bit that I want to talk to you about. Okay? It doesn't matter what you do, because it doesn't. Okay? It matters why you do it. How do you find a job? Well, part of that is to make sure you first of all understand how to define yourself. Okay? Too often we define ourselves by what we do. If I was to ask you who you are, many of you would tell me you're a student. That'd be your first answer. Okay? You're a student. Because that's how you feel the world sees you, and that's how you see yourself. But you're not a student. You might even tell me that you're a business studies student, or whichever course you're on, student. Okay? But that too does not define you. That is not who you are. The problem is, if that's how you define yourself, you don't yet have a clue who you are. And you really need to spend some time. This is what university is really fundamentally about. A lot of people come to university think they're coming here to learn a course, but no, it's the one time in your life you have time to figure out who you actually are. And that's what you're supposed to be doing here. Okay? You're supposed to figure out what it is that actually drives you. What is your cause? For me, I recognized that what I wanted to do in life was to have a positive impact. I wanted to help other people achieve things. I wanted to help the world be a better place to live in. I wanted to help change some of the rot that I saw in society, and certainly a lot of the rot that I see in the business community. Because actually what I found is a lot of greed, and I found a lot of selfishness, and I found a lot of people being driven to do anything as long as it was okay for them. Okay? Now that might seem like perfectly fine. If we all make sure we're okay, we'll be fine. But actually, society is far better when we all work together to help each other, and under that, we all do better. Everybody gets better. And so these are things that I found really motivated me. I found it was important that I wanted to be able to do business ethically. I wanted to find a way of being in business and succeed and not cheat and not steal and not be greedy and not screw my customers and not screw my business partners. I found things in this industry and other industries that disgusted me. There was a prevalence in the last decade of companies that were large enterprises that would take on big building contracts, for example, and then get all the materials in and then not pay the subcontractors until they went into insolvency and then get all of the materials in on the cheap so they could deliver on these big contracts. Okay? Basically just screwing everyone else so that they could make their money and do it. I found examples of that over and over again. Ultimately, if you go through life just trying to make more money, you will find very quickly that you may be successful at that, but you will have left an empty and vacuous life. Okay? So, for me, the best piece of advice I can give anyone is don't chase the money comes. Chase the cause, chase the things that you're passionate about. Our company has a very clear ethos, has a very clear mission statement, and that mission statement says that we continue to have a positive impact on our employees, customers and community through a culture of learning, growth and innovation. If you asked any member of my staff, including the staff here today, what our ethos is, they will repeat it back to you. And they'll tell you, because that's what we live by. It's the way we work, it's how we make every decision. We are defined by a cause. If you listen to that, none of you could tell me what my company does. Okay? So as a company, we are defined to have a positive impact on our employees, customers and community through a culture of learning, growth and innovation. Can any of you tell me what my company does? No. We actually write bespoke software for the travel industry. I don't hear the word software, bespoke, travel, or any of that in the mission statement. Why? Because we're not defined by what we do, we're defined by why we do it. Why are we doing that? Because we want to have a positive impact. Okay? If you find your cause, you'll find your purpose. That's the key. You cannot find the job that you want until you know what you want. Find yourself first. And then, how do you find that job that meets your purpose? Well, let's go right back to the start. The definition of a company is a group of people that come together. Why do they come together? Well, what's the difference between a company and a country? A country is a group of people that are brought together by the place they live. Beyond that, very little. But a company, a real company, is defined by people of common purpose. People that make decisions, that have a common ethos, make decisions for the same reasons, okay, that are in it for the same purpose. That's the definition of a company. Not about what they do, but why they do it. So if you understand why you do what you do, you can begin to understand how to find the company you want to go and work for. Find something that you're passionate about and follow it. If you don't do that, you'll only find yourself working somewhere that you don't enjoy.